So, look at the clock on your wall. Just, listen to it for a second. Tick, tick, tick.
It's always there.
Right. We basically orient our entire reality around this idea that time is a river, and that river is constantly sweeping us forward into the unknown.
Sweeping us right along.
Exactly. The present just sort of slips into the past. We get a little bit older, and tomorrow is, it's a blank page waiting for us to write it. The progression of time feels like the most undeniable fact of human existence.
It really is the ultimate universally accepted truth, right? We're born, we make choices that shape our future, and the clock just keeps ticking. We view time as the fundamental force that actually creates change in the universe.
But what if the clock is lying to you? What if the river of time isn't actually flowing at all? The future has already happened, and you are just, watching the playback.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a document that challenges everything we think we know about reality, free will, and the basic architecture of the universe. It's this text called 36.8 Trigrams of Time, The Array of Time, by an author named Shuefeng.
And it's a dense one.
Yeah, very. And the mission of this deep dive is to explore the massive existential questions this document throws at us. Does time truly exist? Why do we age and suffer? And is this whole life we're living just, an elaborate illusion?
It is a profoundly ambitious text. Our goal today is to synthesize the author's incredibly diverse claims, which, by the way, pull from thousands of years of human history, religion, and philosophy, and figure out what they actually mean for you, the listener, in your day-to-day life.
Because it's not just theory, is it?
No, not at all. The author isn't just speaking in abstract terms for the sake of a thought experiment. They are trying to systematically dismantle the anxiety of human existence.
And the way the author goes about this is honestly wild. They use this massive mix of ancient prophecies to prove a radical point about how the universe functions.
Prophecies as proof.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Because before the author can convince us that time is an illusion, they have to prove something that is just as hard to swallow, which is that the future is already set in stone.
Right. The narrative through-line here is causality. The author's argument rests on a very specific premise. If the future can be seen with absolute granular precision, hundreds or even thousands of years before it happens, then the future cannot be something that is currently being created by our daily choices.
It has to already be there.
Exactly. It must already exist as a physical destination.
So how does the text actually try to prove that? Are we talking about vague psychic predictions here, where it's someone will meet a tall, dark stranger?
Far from it. To prove this, the text points to historical prophecies that the author argues have been fulfilled with undeniable, almost terrifying accuracy. The author starts by looking at the Bible.
Okay.
Specifically, the books of Leviticus and Ezekiel, examining prophecies made over 2,000 years ago.
Biblical prophecies. What were they predicting exactly?
Well, these texts prophesied that the Jewish people would be scattered among various, quote, nations, and suffer immensely, but eventually they would be gathered back to their own land.
Okay, that's a known historical narrative.
Right, and the author traces this prophecy through actual historical events. They detail how the Jewish people lost their homeland, were dispersed, and faced brutal persecution globally in places like Cyprus, Germany, France, and Poland.
Culminating, obviously, in World War II.
Yes, the horrors of World War II. And then the text highlights how, against all odds, they gathered in the Palestinian territories and officially established the State of Israel in May 1948.
Fulfilling that 2,000-year-old prophecy.
Exactly.
That is a massive historical arc. The author is looking at a 2,000-year-old text and saying, look, this wasn't a guess. This was a script playing out perfectly on the world stage.
That is the exact argument. But the author doesn't stop with biblical texts. They move across the world to a 600-year-old Chinese prophecy from the Ming Dynasty.
Oh, the Jinling Pagoda thing.
Yes, the inscription of the Jinling Pagoda. And this is where the text's argument about the extreme specificity of the future really takes shape.
I read this part of the source material, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. The Jinling Pagoda was built by a military strategist named Liu Ji roughly 6 centuries ago, right?
Also known as Liu Bowen, yes. And the prophecy inscribed at this pagoda consisted of a very simple, straightforward sentence. It stated, Liu Ji built it, Chiang Kai-shek demolished it.
Which just sounds like a plaque on a building, nothing crazy.
It does, until you look at the historical timeline. 600 years go by. Then, in 1918, the Nationalist Army takes control of Nanjing.
Okay.
According to the historical accounts cited in the text, there were strange noises coming from this exact pagoda. The noises were so disruptive that Chiang Kai-shek literally orders the military to demolish it.
Oh.
And during that demolition process, they uncovered the very inscription that named him.
Wait, let me process this. The prophecy didn't just say, this building will fall. It named Chiang Kai-shek. It named the specific guy who would give the order 6 centuries before he was even born.
That is what the text presents, yes, and
Okay.
it gets more specific. The author also brings in Master Buju, a great general from the Sui dynasty, which was over 1,000 years ago.
Okay, what does he predict?
In a prophecy poem, Master Buju described, quote, iron birds soaring in the sky and the southeast being completely destroyed.
Iron birds.
Yes, which the author interprets as airplanes, a technological concept that obviously did not exist in the minds of anyone living during the Sui dynasty.
That is terrifying. It's one thing to vaguely predict some future conflict, but to name the exact person who orders the demolition of a pagoda 600 years in the future.
It's highly specific.
It's like knowing exactly who will kick over a specific sandcastle on a beach 3 centuries from now. It's like a bizarrely specific movie spoiler. It shouldn't be possible if time is just, a series of random cascading events based on human choices.
Which brings us to the core functional mechanic the author is trying to establish. If time flowed like a river, creating new events based on probability and choice, then prophecy would just be an educated guess.
Right. A statistical probability at best.
Exactly. The fact that specific names and unprecedented technologies are recorded centuries in advance implies that the future is a finalized structure.
It's locked in.
Yes. If you can see a mountain from 50 miles away, you aren't building the mountain by walking toward it. The mountain is already there. For the author, time isn't creating change, time is just recording it.
Okay, so if we accept that Chiang Kai-shek's demolition job was locked in 600 years prior, what is time actually doing? Are we just experiencing a playback?
That leads directly into the core cosmological argument of the text, the idea that the universe is essentially a giant pre-written novel. The author argues that the entire development of humanity, locations, characters, birth, sickness, death, our joys, our sorrows, they are all just fixed numbers in a cosmic program. We are living out a script.
The novel metaphor is really striking in the text. I mean, it really paints a picture.
What's fascinating here is how the author uses that metaphor to reframe time as a total illusion for humans. The text says that if you are a Buddha, which the author defines simply as someone who has opened the Buddha's eye or achieved true spiritual clarity, you can flip to any page in this universal novel at will.
You aren't bound by the linearity of it.
Right. You aren't bound by the linear progression of the pages. You can look at chapter 1 or chapter 50.
But the rest of us are just reading it line by line.
We are what the text calls lost in the array of time. Because we only perceive one moment to the next, we are forced to experience the novel word by word, page by page. And because of that limitation, we live under the heavy illusion that the next page hasn't been written yet.
To drive home just how detailed this universal novel really is, the author points to another major prophecy. This time from the French physician Nostradamus, written over 400 years ago in a collection called The Centuries.
Ah, yes, the Nostradamus interpretation.
Right. Now, to be incredibly clear to you listening, we are strictly looking at the author's unique interpretation of this text today. We are simply reporting the source material's claims without taking any sides or endorsing any political worldview. We're just looking at the text.
Absolutely.
But the way the author maps a 400-year-old poem onto modern politics is fascinating.
It really is. The text references Century 3, Quatrain 92, and Century 6, Quatrain 10 from Nostradamus. These passages mention an empire transferred towards the dusky nation, and temples with colors of white and black of the two intermixed.
And the author explicitly claims that the dusky nation and the intermixed black and white colors foretold Barack Obama's presidency in the United States, and specifically his political pairing with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Which is a very specific modern interpretation.
Yeah, and the text then goes even further, linking this intermixing to subsequent global events mentioned in the prophecies, specifically blood, plague, famine, fire, and floods.
And, whether someone agrees with that specific political and historical interpretation or not, we have to look at what the author is trying to say about the architecture of reality. The author is doubling down on the concept of the fixed number.
Meaning everything is a set data point.
Yes. They are arguing that the program is absolute. Everything from a modern cabinet appointment in Washington, D.C. to natural disasters across the globe was locked into the script 4 centuries ago.
Time merely reveals what was already decided.
Exactly. Time itself plays absolutely no role in the development of these things.
Okay, here's the part I really struggle with. If the universe is just a novel that's already been published, and time is just me reading it line by line, doesn't that make free will a total joke?
It certainly challenges the concept.
I mean, am I just a DVR forced to play a pre-recorded show at 1x speed? If every joy, every sorrow, every sickness I experience is just a fixed number in a program, that feels incredibly bleak. It feels paralyzing.
It does feel bleak, especially to the modern mind. We prize individual autonomy above almost everything else. We are steeped in hustle culture, in the idea that you can manifest your destiny, that you are the master of your fate.
Right, you make your own luck.
Exactly. Determinism, the idea that the script is written, completely crushes that illusion of control. And the author of the text doesn't shy away from this philosophical nightmare. In fact, they lean right into it, bringing us to a massive contradiction that is openly acknowledged within the text itself.
I am so glad the text addresses this, because my brain is twisting in knots. If my actions don't change the script, why shouldn't I just lie on my couch and do nothing? The author actually poses this exact question.
Yes, they do.
They ask, if everything is predetermined and our individual power is basically useless, what's the point of what they call cultivation?
Let's define cultivation in this context because it's crucial. The text talks about striving to improve oneself spiritually. It asks, why should we try to accumulate merits? Why try to repay karmic debts? The text specifically mentions building a spiritual garden before the year 2013.
Right, why bother?
Why even follow Feng's guidance, the author of this text, if the script of your life is already locked in?
So what does this all mean? How does the author resolve this?
It is the ultimate paradox of determinism. Why strive if the outcome is assured? The author's answer is that the situation is contradictory, but simultaneously, from a higher perspective, it is not contradictory at all. The author writes a very profound line, everything is a game, only life is real.
Everything is a game, only life is real.
Okay, that sounds poetic, but how does it get me off the couch?
The author is advising us to take things as they are, but to still actively participate. They tell the reader to associate with others naturally, to act in accordance with our intrinsic nature. The text says, Dharma sets no rules, it is ever changing.
Wait, stop there for a second. What do they mean by Dharma? In this context, Dharma refers to the underlying fundamental law or truth of the universe, the natural order of things.
Okay.
The text is saying that the natural order isn't a rigid set of behavioral commandments you have to stress over, it's a flow. The ultimate seeming paradox the author presents is the instruction that we must realize we are in a script, but we must still act out the script naturally.
Okay, let me see if I'm tracking this. So we have to act out a script we didn't write, but we are supposed to somehow do it naturally. That feels like a tall order.
Think of it this way. Imagine you are cast as a character in a massive theatrical play.
All right, I'm on stage.
Just because you didn't write the script and just because you know how the play ends doesn't mean you don't give it your absolute all when you're on stage. You still have to say the lines with feeling. You still have to hit your marks. Knowledge of the script doesn't excuse you from the performance.
So knowing it's a script is supposed to change how I feel about the performance, not stop me from performing.
Precisely. The author's perspective is that your realization of the script should free you from the anxiety of the outcome. If you know the play ends the way the playwright intended, you don't have to have a panic attack backstage about whether your character will succeed or fail.
You just played the part.
Yes, but that realization shouldn't stop you from participating in the flow of the universe. You still take advantage of opportunities as they arise. You follow natural relationships as they come and go. You don't fight the current of the river. You ride it with profound awareness.
That is a fascinating mental pivot. But let's be real. The script of human life has some intensely dark chapters. Sickness, aging, loss, grief.
It's not an easy script.
No, it's not. The text explicitly points out that we suffer immensely because we reminisce about the past, we anxiously anticipate the future, we look in the mirror and worry about the wrinkles forming on our foreheads and our sagging skin. We do all this stressing out because we fundamentally believe we are the directors of our lives.
When really we are just the actors.
Exactly.
And this is where the author transitions from grand cosmological theories to practical psychological application. If we are trapped in this play, how do you escape the array of time that causes all this grief? Before offering a solution, the author sets a very clear, hard boundary, the escapism rule.
Right, because you cannot literally travel through a time tunnel to change the script. You can't break physical causality.
The text uses a very stark example. It says you cannot go back and, quote, kill your own mother to escape directly to what they call the Pure Land or the Celestial Islands continent.
And for those listening who might not be familiar with those terms, what are the Pure Land and the Celestial Islands continent?
The Pure Land is a concept rooted in Buddhism, a celestial realm or pure abode of bliss, free from the suffering of the normal world. In Shefeng's cosmology, the Celestial Islands continent represents a similar, higher spiritual reality. The author's point is that physical escape from the timeline to reach these places is impossible. You can't cheat the physical mechanics of the universe.
So if you can't build a time machine, the method of escape has to be entirely mental. It has to be a shift in perspective.
Yes. The author instructs the reader to step outside of themselves and observe their own life. They use a remarkably modern metaphor to explain this ancient mystical concept. They say, make a DVD for yourself, then play it on the TV or computer and watch yourself.
A mental DVD. The text says you must mentally preset yourself in these higher realms, places they call the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, or the Elysium Celestial Islands.
You find a safe vantage point.
Right. You anchor your mind in that safe, eternal place, and then you watch your physical life unfold on the screen like a movie.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what the author is describing here aligns beautifully with broader philosophical and psychological concepts of mindfulness and even ego death.
Because you aren't the one experiencing it anymore.
Exactly. By mentally removing yourself from the immediate, visceral, emotional reaction to your physical circumstances, you create a buffer of peace. You realize that the person suffering on the screen is just a character. It's all just acting.
The text points out that whether you play a great person, a beggar, a tour guide, an aggressor, a victim, a young person, or an old person, well, it's all just a role. Okay, let me see if I have this right. Is it kind of like wearing a VR headset?
Walk me through that.
Like, the me inside the video game might be entirely broke, or getting old, or currently sprinting through a forest getting chased by zombies. I might be utterly terrified because my brain thinks the game is all there is. It thinks the danger is real.
Right, you're fully immersed.
Yeah. But if I can suddenly remember that I'm actually sitting safely on my couch in my living room, or the Elysium Celestial Islands in this metaphor, the game immediately stops being terrifying and starts being fun. The zombies are still chasing the character, but I can just enjoy the ride because I know the real me is safe.
That is a perfect analogy. The author draws a sharp, vital distinction between what they call the self in the plot and the true self.
The self in the plot versus the true self.
Yes. The self in the plot is the character in the VR game. That self is trapped in the 36/8 Shigram arrays of time. That self gets wrinkles, gets sick, and eventually dies. But the true self, which the text equates to the Buddha, the nature, or what they call a Chanyuan celestial, a higher spiritual being, is eternal.
It's untouchable.
Exactly. If the character in the script dies, it doesn't matter to the true self, because the true self was only ever watching the DVD.
The text actually promises, want to stay forever young? You can. Want to grow old forever? You can. It's all about where you choose to place your identity. If breaking free from the time array is just a matter of thinking, as the author claims, then the prison of time is entirely constructed by our own attachment to the plot. We are the ones locking our own cell doors.
And that profound psychological realization brings us full circle back to the prophecies. The biblical texts, the Jinling Pagoda, Master Buju, Nostradamus, they weren't presented to scare us with the rigidity of fate.
No, they were proof.
They were presented to prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the plot is out of our hands. And if the plot is entirely out of our hands, the heavy burden of directing the universe is lifted. We are finally free to let go of the steering wheel and simply observe the journey.
It's an absolutely wild journey this text takes us on. We started by looking at ancient, hyper-specific prophecies just to prove that the universe is a pre-scripted novel.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did.
Yeah.
We wrestled with the really uncomfortable paradox of free will, trying to figure out why we should still try to be good actors, even if we didn't write the play. And finally, we arrived at this really beautiful psychological solution, making a mental DVD of our lives to separate the anxious acting self from the true eternal self.
This is exactly why this deep dive is so intensely relevant to you listening right now. Whether you buy into the specific prophecies or the political interpretations of Nostradamus or the complex framework of the 36-8 trigrams of time at all, the underlying practice remains incredibly potent.
Taking that step back.
Yes, the practice of stepping back, taking a deep breath, and observing your own life, your anxieties, your aging, your daily stresses at work, as if you are safely watching a character on a screen, is a profound tool for dealing with modern anxiety. It gives you space. It gives you peace.
It turns down the volume on that ticking clock on the wall. Which leaves us with one final thought for you to ponder today as you go back to living out your own script.
What's the thought?
If you truly mastered this ability, if you could sit back and watch the DVD of your life as a completely detached, perfectly safe observer in the Elysium Celestial Islands, would you still care what genre of movie your life turned out to be? Or is the real peace simply found in the watching?
A fantastic question to end on.
Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. Keep observing, keep questioning, and we'll catch you next time.